Alright, just sit back and get ready to have the most fun you ever had with an electronic device. Alright, everybody, welcome out to the Get On With It Sports Show. It is Wednesday, February the 23rd, 2022. Jersey Johnny coming at you. And with me, as always, is none other than Mr. RadioPete and Mr. Harry Lug Nutz. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hola.
What's up, homies?
How the hell are you guys on this fine evening?
A little chilly, but other than that, fine.
A little chilly. It was 70 degrees here today.
Good for you.
And it's going to be, with the wind chill tomorrow morning, it's going to be 24.
So you got a normal Denver day.
We got a Denver day, yeah, exactly. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta get my.
It was great today, but tomorrow night.
Yeah, today was nice.
Yeah.
Got to get your.
A little warm at work. I got to get my summer work vest going.
I thought you said you got to get your leg warmers going for your OnlyFans page.
Well, no, they've been going all winter.
Mm.
Well, it's funny because one of the regulars I deliver for, it's a butcher shop, and the owner asked me the other day because I always wear shorts, and of course everyone makes a big deal out of it, but she goes, "You wear shorts now?" This was a few days ago when it was a little bit warm, starting to get warm. It was like 40 or whatever, and she goes, "What are you going to do in the summer when it's hot?"
Mm-hmm. And you responded by saying,
I said, "I'll probably get arrested."
but
I
just to avoid the heat.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I see where he was going with that.
But I got a nice little nylon vest on the way.
Very nice.
Because I need some pockets when I deliver stuff.
Sure.
I can't rely on like shorts pockets; they're too bulky, and so I got a nice little. It's one of those little safety vests with the reflective tape. I'm gonna totally be geeked out. It's a nice blue though. It's not bright yellow or orange or anything, but
just put a nice little Get On With It Sports Podcast sticker right on the back of it. So when you're walking,
if I order 20 of them, I can put the logo on for free.
There you go.
But I came.
But you don't need 20 of them.
No, I was like 19 short.
I gotcha. All right. Well,
but listen, if we get rolling, then it could be a podcast giveaway.
There you go. We can do that. We can give them away.
Like other podcasts will give away sports tickets or spend a day with your favorite hockey hero. We give away safety vests, but they have our logo on them.
Exactly, but people will wear them. I mean, they can't wear spending a day with your favorite hockey hero.
Yeah. Well, listen, as long as they're fat guys like me,
right?
They're gonna love them because
Sure.
it's almost like a poncho, and then it's got the little clippy things on the side.
Mm-hmm.
So between that, actually, I got 3 different ones that I'm gonna look at and try on. But
very nice.
Do some product, investigations. It's just some flush them out, see what they.
Yeah. See which one is
gonna work
the best. So.
All right. There's really, honestly, just basketball to talk about tonight. Although I did want to mention one thing. What do you think about? I already asked Harry. I'll ask you, Pete. What do you think about Marcus Stroman's remarks lately?
Did we talk about this last week?
No.
Oh.
No, we might have touched on it, but he just made more remarks yesterday. He's
I have no idea. What did he say?
He's happy he's out of the organization. He thanks God he's out of the organization. That organization is on and on and on. Things like that.
You're talking about the Mets or the Cubs?
The Mets. Yeah. Billy Epler is incompetent and they're going nowhere. Blah 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 blah. That kind of a thing. Just spewing venom. Yeah. So.
Well, listen, he might not be entirely wrong, but I don't think. Look, I thought it was a stupid move to get rid of him. Right. He had a good season. He's an innings eater. It's exactly what the Mets needed. Sure. Right. Wasn't costing him, no pun intended, arm and a leg. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was kind of dumb for them to let him go. Now, again, and I think there was a story with him the way there was a story with everybody. It seems that he didn't call them back, or they didn't right? He said they didn't call him or
they
whatever.
Didn't call
right?
him or they were.
They didn't call him, and they went, well, we made him an offer.
Stood up at dinner or something. I don't know.
And then he ran off and got a better offer from the Cubs or whatever. So maybe he wanted to leave. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he felt underappreciated.
Whatever. All I know.
Whatever. This makes him look bad. I think. I mean, we all know what the organization is like.
You don't say
there are missteps.
Yeah.
So, but if he was really unhappy here, well, then there was probably no way he was going to stay here unless the Mets made him some ridiculous money offer, because the money always is a deciding factor. So, or
is this just sour grapes? He didn't get to stay, so that's why he's glad he's gone.
Well, yeah, but why would you not? Say
because he's Marcus Stroman. He likes to he likes to tweet a lot of bullshit.
Right. So he's a dick.
Yeah, pretty much.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's like every other, like 90% of all other major league guys.
Right. So instead of coming out and going, I really wish I had stayed there.
Enjoyed my time there. Blah 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 blah. I look forward to being in Chicago.
Had a good relationship and blah blah blah. Yeah. But it didn't work out. And whatever. I think the Mets made a mistake. That's all you got to say.
What was he on the Mets for 2 years?
2 years. Yeah. Well, would have been 3 years if he actually pitched in 2020.
Yeah,
he didn't pitch in 2020. It would have been 2.5 because he came in before the trade deadline in 19, and then he opted out in 2020, and then he pitched last year. Yeah. So there you go. But anyway,
so
is what it is. We'll hopefully next week have the contract that they actually arbitrated and came to an agreement on, and they're getting ready for spring training to talk about, but. We don't have that this week, so we'll just, move to basketball. What do you think?
Sure.
Sounds good.
Sounds like a plan.
Sure, why not? Slow
sports week, even with the NBA All-Star.
It's not like we had a whole lot of NBA going on.
That's my point. But we'll kick it off like we always do with the quiz. Was football, now it's basketball for a while. It'll be baseball, hopefully, in a couple months. I'd throw a hockey in there, too. But
no, we won't.
Maybe. I don't know. I'll surprise you. But tonight's quiz is best NBA centers. Best NBA centers of all time.
Oh, boy.
You got to keep 4. 2 got to go.
Tom Brady is out.
Tom Brady's on the list.
Oh, he's not?
He is. He's on the list.
Okay. Yeah. Well, he's not on my list.
There you go. No, 4. I'm giving you 6. 4 stay. 2 got to go.
Shoot.
All right. Write these down. Write these down. Here we go.
Right.
Kareem.
Elijah won?
That's Hakeem. Kareem.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Lou Alcindor, if you will.
No, please.
You want Kareem or Lou, whatever you want.
Yeah, Kareem's better.
Kareem. There you go, Kareem. All right. Wilt Stilt.
Elijah won? It works for every name.
Wilt Stilt, Elijah won, right, yeah. Bill Russell. I think he won a couple of championships, didn't
he? Yeah. First.
1 or 11. Something like that.
Best systems center ever.
There you go. Shaq. All right. Pete, go ahead and say the name.
Marcus Stroman.
No.
Patrick Ewing?
Hakeem Olajuwon.
Oh, Hakeem Olajuwon.
You missed it.
Oh. Sorry.
And to wrap it up, Moses Malone.
All right, run through them once again.
Kareem, Wilt, Russell, Shaq, Hakeem, and Moses.
Wilt, Bill, Shaq,
Hakeem, and Moses.
6.
That would be correct.
Okay. Let's. Well, again, I got to get rid of 2.
You got to get rid of 2. Who are you getting rid of?
Well, you can't get rid of Kareem because he's pretty much the best ever.
All righty.
You can't get rid of Wilt because he's pretty much the best ever.
Can't get rid of Russell because he is pretty much the best ever.
He's pretty much the best ever.
Yeah. I'll get rid of Moses Malone. Exciting though he is.
All right. And your other? Will the other one be Shaq?
Or Shaq?
Hakeem or Shaq, yeah. Hakeem Olajuwon or Shaq Olajuwon?
The Dream was so good, and without Michael Jordan in the league, Houston flourished. But Shaq was
even better.
They're both. I don't know, man. Shaq was just like nobody else.
Right.
He also played at a time when Hakeem and Ewing and all these guys who were the second wave of the best centers in basketball were ending their careers, and He didn't really play against any great centers in his time.
It's not his fault, though.
But when you're comparing things, I think it's important.
Yeah, but then again, what did the Dream do when Michael Jordan was in the league?
Not win.
Still pretty dominant. He was still the best center in the league.
Well, he was of course. But
what did Kareem do before he had Oscar Robertson or before he had Magic Johnson? Right. Still the best center in the league.
Well, yeah. Well, listen, you could say that about Bill Russell. What did he do? He had great teammates too. These guys all had. Great teammates.
Well, Bill Russell outplayed Wilt Chamberlain for 9 championships in a row. So,
true story. So, who do you get rid of, Shaq or Hakeem?
Yeah, sorry, Shaq.
All right.
I got to keep the Dream.
You got.
Yeah. You could put a team on Shaq's shoulders for a game or two. You could put him on the Dream's shoulders for a series or two.
So you're keeping Kareem, Wilt, Bill.
Kareem, Dream, Wilt, and Bill.
There you go.
Not necessarily in that order.
Harry?
I'm doing the same. Look, Shaq should be, after Kareem and Wilt, Shaq should have been the next name you think of. But, all of these centers, it took them pairing up with someone to win a championship. The one exception on that list, I would argue, is Hakeem Olajuwon. Now, in the second championship, he had a very old Clyde Drexler. But on that first team, it was 2 centers going against each other with a cast of second stringers going against it.
That whole finals was just the Ewing and Olajuwon show.
And look, during that time, you had Patrick Ewing, you had David Robinson, you had Hakeem Olajuwon, you had a bunch of other centers who were great defensively that beat up on them, and you had probably the best era of power forwards in the game who were also beating up on these guys game in and game out. People like Rick Schmitz, there were a lot of these guys had to battle every night against great players. Dikembe Mutombo, what's his name from Miami? Anyway, other Georgetown center. Alonzo Mourning. These guys had to play against much better players. And at the end of the day, when you look at Hakeem had more, Hakeem and Shaq's numbers are pretty darn close. Now, of course, Shaq had a slightly better field goal percentage because Shaq basically shot from 2 feet or no feet. And Shaq was a great player. And when Shaq first came into the league, I thought, well, he might go down as the best player of all time, let alone the best center of all time. But I'm taking Hakeem. And the other 3, if you don't put them on your list, then you don't know basketball at all.
Right. Okay.
Moses Malone, maybe along with Wes Unseld and somebody else we might be talking about later tonight, maybe the best undersized center to ever play the game. And a guy who, again, brought a championship to another great player and the only one he ever had in Dr. J.
Yep. So,
yeah, I mean, I would take any of these 6. I think they are probably the 6 best centers of all time. But I agree with Pete's assessment. It's not a lot. I don't have Shaq too far behind, but I do have him slightly behind those other 4.
Gotcha. All right. Cool. Good list. All right. Works.
There we go. 100% agreement.
There you go. Look at that. And I agree too, by the way. So
400% agreement. No, 300%.
If you ask a lot of younger people, though, it's funny when we do these top 10s. Every once in a while, I started looking at Bleacher Report, which always a ranker or all these things, and it's mostly a lot of younger people. And so when they rank people, they forget about generations of players.
Yeah, they don't even know who they are. They never heard of them. They either never heard of them or they don't care to listen to because they never saw them.
But if you look at Bleacher Report, one of those, and look at their list of best centers of all time, Shaq will probably be on the top of that list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying.
Well, it's going to, because of.
Right, but and every generation has kind of their players. I mean, guys that are around our age, we remember, like we're going to be talking about the Knicks in a short while. The golden age.
We're primed. We remember the end of Kareem's career. We don't we don't remember him with the Bucks. You know, we don't remember watching Wilt and Bill Russell, but I mean, if you don't study the game, it doesn't take much to realize that there's an argument to be made that Wilt Chamberlain is not only the best center to ever play the game, but arguably the best basketball player to ever play the game. I mean, he's somebody who scored 100 points in one game. Right. And then he got criticized for not passing the ball enough and went out and led the league in assists the next year. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, but he doesn't have the rings that a Bill Russell had, and it's not as if he didn't have talent around him. I mean, it's an interesting debate. It's an interesting debate.
Yeah. Yes. It's a very interesting debate, and I'm glad we had it. And we'll have more of it, obviously, over the next few weeks while we do basketball, or basically up until baseball starts, I suppose. And even after that,
for 9 more months.
9 more months.
So till August.
What will football starts? Baseball or football training?
Exactly. Yeah. We'll talk about that. So, all right. Let's talk about All-Star Weekend.
How about that Obi Toppin?
How good was that slam dunk competition? What do you think? That was
mediocre.
If you gave me a trampoline, I could beat him. I mean, look, I think I told you guys this. I saw Obi Toppin play here in Denver, and he's like a newborn buck who finally who can jump over a small mountain, but doesn't know how to coordinate. It's just he has so much raw talent, yet I don't think his upper body and his lower body communicate with
not
each
at
other
all. No, not at all.
No. It was the worst slam dunk contest. It makes me kind of say, hey, look, you either have to, and I don't think you could do this, you either have to encourage the really good players to enter back into this or get rid of it. Because I'm not blaming the guys who were in the competition. It's just, it wasn't the cream of the crop.
No.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
And it's a little, I mean, I don't want to say jaded, but maybe a little bit jaded in that, we've seen fantastic dunks, windmill dunks through the legs, all that stuff. We've seen that, and we saw it a long time ago, right? Back in our heyday in the 80s and 90s, right? With guys like Jordan and Dominique and, so that's nothing new for us, as impressive as it is.
Yeah.
And there's sort of, and I think it's really hard right now because there's kind of a line between doing those sort of things, as impressive as they are, but we've seen them before. Like today, taking off from the foul line. Okay, there's a bunch of guys that can do that. But between that and jumping over a car or whatever, Blake Griffin did, it's that in between. I think it's getting squeezed now because unless you're a fan of the really outrageous, you're kind of through the legs, windmill, seen it.
Yeah, I feel like it's like music, and guitar players. We watched Jimi Hendrix and we watched Jimmy Page and we watched Eddie Van Halen, and now we have John Mayer. That's kind of how I feel
right.
The NBA dunk contest.
And it's really
it's
not really fair.
Background,
Right. It's not really fair to the players.
No, because the best players are not entering the competition.
Right. So I don't know where I don't know. What do you do? How do you be creative with a dunk?
How many dunkers are there in the league anymore, though? That's the thing, is that the dunk is, how many dunks does Steph Curry have in his career as a percentage of his points? I mean, let's take, who are the top 5 players in the NBA right now?
Top 5 players in the NBA?
Yeah, pick any 5. I'm not going to argue
whatever.
Pick.
Joker.
All right.
Dame.
Durant might be interesting, although he's hurt, to watch him dunk. Giannis, do you want to watch Giannis enter the dunk contest? He's a great dunker. I don't want to see Jokic enter the dunk contest. LeBron probably still be more interesting than most of the guys out there. What I'm saying is a lot of these 2 and 3 guard, the small forwards, if they even exist anymore, and the Devin Bookers, the Donovan Mitchells, the Jamal Murrays of the world, are they? Are they going to even consider entering the dunk contest? Are we going to see, you're going to get the Obi Toppins of the world, but there's not a lot of guys where Okay, I saw them dunk in the game, like Clyde Drexler or like Dominique Wilkins or people like that. They need to be in the dunk contest. I feel like, I've seen Obi Toppin dunk because he can't shoot beyond 4 feet, but he's not dunking like Clyde Drexler. He's not dunking, even like Shaq.
But that spirit. I
want to see
a competition between the best players in the league. Who's the best dunker? Well, I want to prove that just isn't there anymore. Now it's let's let the young kids take a shot at it, but they can't compare to what we've already seen.
I think if you really want to make it interesting, get Dikembe Mutombo and Bill Laimbeer and stick them under the basket, and then have these young kids drive down the lane and try to dunk it.
Right. You know what? I bet there's like
that would be interesting.
There's a robot. There's a Japanese robot.
You automatically win if you do get the basket.
The Mutombo bot.
That'll block. Practically.
You got the finger going like that while you're
waiting. The Lambeerotron.
So electronic voice.
You know what would win it for me if somebody did the Jordan dunk that he did in Space Jam, where he took off from half court and his arm extended about 30 feet and he put it in. Boom, that wins.
To my point, all right, maybe Larry Bird is out of the equation, but every great player Dr. J, Michael Jordan, the Magic Johnson, James Worthy, I all remember them dunking in unique ways. Even Bernard King for the Knicks, had that sort of baseline, two-handed dunk where he just sort of plopped it in.
Right.
The dunk is not part of a lot of these scorers' games anymore.
No. It's been replaced by the three-point shot.
Yeah, that's my point.
Right.
That's my point. Yeah. And even, and the contested, there's a lot of dunks, but none of them are really contested anymore. When was the last time you saw somebody dunk over somebody like John Starks did?
Yeah. True. So.
Yeah, it's not the same part of the game it used to be.
Yeah, now, there's one guy I would have liked to see in the dunk contest, John Morant. Now that's I could give you a list of 5 guys. It's just, will you get them to actually?
So why don't we do this next year? We'll put a list together of the 5 guys we want to see enter, and we'll give it to the NBA. And those are the 5 guys that have to actually enter.
If Zion Williamson's legs will ever heal, he would be a great candidate. Don't you?
Yeah, that might be and we'll see if the NBA is. I don't think they can make anybody do it, obviously, but they could put pressure. Like that might be the next direction as far as, yes, we're going to take the young bucks, but we're going to take the 5 best young bucks. And who's the best amongst you guys?
At least the athletic ones where the dunking is part of their game.
Right.
Zion's he has that sort of game. John Morant has that kind of part of his game. There are guys out there who have that. Obi Toppin's great, but by the way, Obi Toppin was a big underdog. He was I looked at the so-called experts picking who was going to win this dunk contest. Only one of them out of 15 picked Obi Toppin. So congratulations, Obi.
There you go.
Wasn't he in it last year too?
I think he was.
He came in second last year.
There we go.
I will argue Obi Toppin is probably the most popular Knick right now. I don't know why, but he is.
Listen, his trade value may never be higher. But they don't seem interested in doing anything ever.
Keep him there.
So,
So Karl Anthony Towns won a 3-pointer contest,
which is crazy.
Yeah, that's definitely not a guy I would have put money on.
Not so much, no.
Well, who else was in it? That's the other thing was, it's like
right, exactly.
Back in the day in the 3, I remember Larry Bird going up against, other great shooters. I think Larry Bird beat Reggie Miller. An older Larry Bird beat a young.
What was it? He beat Trae Young and Luke Kennard.
Yeah, which those are 2. But again, I feel like we're battling to get 3 people to enter it. Whereas back in the day, there was like 2 or 3 rounds. And
honestly,
people involved.
If the 3-point contest, you need Steph Curry in it.
Yeah.
You should probably have his brother in it, right? Because he's an excellent.
Yeah, I want to see Damian Lillard, Devin Booker, and Steph Curry go up against each other.
Who's the best amongst you? Hot shots. Right. But I guess they're not interested.
They're not. They don't care. So, all right, and of course, whatchamacallit, Team LeBron wins.
I don't like this let's play to a score thing.
So, well,
honestly, I didn't really watch a second of
you
it.
did.
I watched a few highlights on the internet, but I didn't really watch any of it.
And who was the last? Who was the last pick in the choosing sides?
Kyrie, right? Oh no, James Harden.
Yeah.
Oh, was it? Nice.
Yeah, Durant had the last pick, and then LeBron just got the leftover, and Durant did not pick Harden.
Who did he pick instead of Harden?
Who did he pick?
Doesn't matter.
Oh, crap, I forgot.
One of the 9 Antetokounmpos.
Yeah. I forget who the hell it was. I forget. Anyway, but so he picked. He had to go with his family or something like that. I don't know what it was, whatever. But he I mean, it was more.
He picked his brother, who's not even in the NBA.
It was more of a joke than anything else.
Franklin Durant.
Yeah.
He's a
Franklin
12-year-old.
Yeah,
whatever.
Jimmy Durant.
Well, Harden wasn't even going to play, so
no.
Yeah.
So there you go. But anyway, 163, 160.
Steph Curry putting up 50 in an All-Star game. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I know it's kind of become a clinic, but still, that's he had to be out there at least for 25 shots or 20 shots, right?
Mm-hmm. He was out there with 36 minutes. He played.
That's a lot of minutes in an All-Star game.
Yeah. So, I think the closest Joel Embiid had the most points on on Team Durant was 36. So, but anyway, so
I don't really care about any of it.
No, pretty much. That can wrap up the All-Star weekend. So, now we're back.
I don't know. It just none of it seems very fun.
It seems very forced, is what it seems to me.
Yeah.
Still watch it, but it's not. It doesn't have the allure that it used to have.
Yeah.
For me, anyway. So,
for me too. That's why I don't watch it.
There you go. So, anyway, all right. So now we're back to regular basketball, and
so tomorrow they start up again.
They start up again.
Yeah, they start up again tomorrow.
Only 3 more months before we see Ben Simmons or James Harden play again.
Yeah,
exactly. Is that it?
I don't know. Ben Simmons is an emotional
lap
training.
Oh.
Physical and emotional training.
He's got the emotional training going on. Yeah, exactly.
He's got the emotional. Yeah.
So anyway,
once he's breaks free of the house-breaking wee pads, then he'll be able to step on the court for the Nets.
All right. So, any predictions for the second half of the NBA season?
I think it's going to go on.
It'll happen. They'll play basketball.
I think the West has the 4 best teams of basketball. I think the Sixers. I think it'll be interesting to see if the Sixers are actually a better team. I'm not sure they are. And I think the Nets have gotten a lot better. And if they can get Durant healthy, look out.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with that. I think it actually was a good move for them. And we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Let's make our second half predictions. Let's make
second half predictions. All right.
Let's make just first in the East, first in the West. Fine, and the season before the playoffs. We're not going to pick the championship or anything like that. Just who's going to wind up in first in the East, who's going to wind up in first in the West. So, Harry, start us off.
The Phoenix Suns are going to wind up first in the East. No, first in the West, and the Chicago Bulls are going to remain in first place. They're going to win the East.
All right, Pete. Really? You don't say.
I think Miami's going to be first in the East. Although Chicago's going to be immediately behind them. In the West,
Now, Chris Paul is out. And he could be out for a while. But I still think
Golden State's got to get it together.
I still think Phoenix is the team to beat.
I like Memphis, though.
There you go. It's not a bad pick.
Because they kind of almost have the nothing to lose type. You know what I mean? They're not expected to be.
They got a lot of talent, and they're playing good ball. I mean, look at their record.
Like they're coming together.
Yep.
Well, they're together. They're already there.
They're already
right.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll take Memphis.
All right.
Here's what I think is a more interesting question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to say mine's the Bulls in the East and and Golden State in the West. That's where I'm going.
Okay. Yeah. All right, here's what I think is a more interesting question, or at least an interesting question. Will the now it's 10 that go to the playoffs with the play-in, right?
Right.
Yes.
So will the top 8 change? Will somebody the East or the West?
Will somebody that's not in the top 8 right now be in the top 8 at the end of the season?
And so the top 8 in the East are Miami, Chicago, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Milwaukee, Boston, the Raptors, and the Nets.
Not will they stay in that order,
right?
But will
Charlotte,
Atlanta,
Charlotte is 2.5. Charlotte is 2.5 games behind the Nets, and Atlanta is also 2.5 games behind the Nets.
Yep. Right. And the Wizards are a game behind.
3.5, and the Knicks are kaputs.
Yeah. Will either of those, any of those 3 teams, crack the top 8?
I'm going to say yes.
Who would it be? Charlotte,
Atlanta.
I would
together in the second half.
I think it's going to. I would say no, because I think Toronto is on a heater. I think Brooklyn is going to get better. I think Charlotte's been actually limp falling. I think they've lost 10 in a row, or
they lost 3 in a row. Yeah.
Well, they're
1 and 9 in the last.
Okay,
so 1 and 9. They're 1 and 9 in the last 10.
Yeah, I do agree. Atlanta is, but I think out of all of those other teams, I think it's going to be hard. I think it's going to stay the way it is.
Okay, fair enough.
I agree. I think it's going to be tough. Like again, barring major injuries or whatever. But I mean, Boston's been playing very well. I don't think they're going to play as well as they have heading into the break for the rest of the season. But Toronto too, and I think the Nets should increase their winning percentage. I think it's going to be tough. If it was going to be somebody, I would say maybe. Yeah, I would think Washington might be the team that can get it together, but I don't think it's going to be enough. So I think it stays the same.
Right. In the West, we got Phoenix, Golden State, Memphis, Utah, Dallas, the Nuggets, and then the 7 through 10 are the Timberwolves, the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Trailblazers. Right. With San Antonio 2 games out behind the Trailblazers. The Timberwolves are 2.5 games behind the Nuggets. The Clippers are 2 games behind the Timberwolves. And the Lakers are 6 games behind the Nuggets and 1.5 games out of the 8th spot, with the Trailblazers being 2.5 games behind the Lakers.
Yeah. Well, we're talking the top 8, right? So we're not including the Lakers. Yeah. This one stays the same. I don't see.
You think the Lakers are going to have to do a play-in game?
Yeah, I do. I think maybe. I mean, no, I don't. I think this one. I'm saying no on this one. This one stays the same. I think the Lakers are going to be on the outside looking in and need a play-in game.
I think the Lakers make it. I think they jump past the Clippers. I think you might actually even see the Nuggets fall into a play-in game. I do think this changes. I think there's going to be a pretty good shift. I think you might see Minnesota and Denver change places. I think you're going to see the Clippers fall. And at the end of the day, I'm not so sure the San Antonio Spurs aren't going to jump past the Trailblazers. Nurkic is out now with some foot injury for a while. Trailblazers are playing, decent ball. I think they won 3 or 4 in a row since the trade deadline. But I think you're going to see some movement here in the West. Mm-hmm. Not at the top, but 6, 7, 5, 6, maybe even 5, 6, 7, 8. I think you're going to see some movement.
All right.
Yeah, it's hard to trust the Clippers.
Well, I mean, look, you got to give them credit, though.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, but Justin Herbert's a good quarterback.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
Good.
That's true. But can they hang it? Yeah, I think you'll see some movement. I don't know if you'll see a change in the top 10.
But you'll see a movement in the top 8.
But I think you'll see maybe those bottom 4 shifting around.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we'll see. Where you guys are in agreement for both, and I'm opposite of both of you. So
you think both are going to stay exactly the way they are?
What's that?
You think the West is going to stay as is?
I think the West, the top 8 will be the top 8, and the East, no. I'm.
You think there'll
be some movement, and I think Atlanta cracks in.
So we are at odds. There we go.
All right. Cool. All right. Well, And wow, this show is speeding along. We're up to our top 10 list of sorts, if you will.
Yes, explain what we're doing for basketball.
All right, for basketball, we're going to do it a little differently. We're not going to actually do a top 10 list this year. We're going to be doing the top teams we'll put together. So tonight it's top Knicks. Let me throw the banner up there.
By position.
Top Knicks by position of all time. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you the top, the first team, point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center. And then the second team, same thing, and then we'll give you our reserves. So there'll be basically 15 names. So we're going to kick it off with the Knicks tonight. I guess why don't I read? I'll read the starting first team.
You don't have a graphic? Come on.
And I didn't make a graphic. No, we'll have to do it. I'll read the starting 15. Read the starting first team.
Sid, I'm not doing my list before 6 p.m. anymore if you're not going to make a graphic.
No, I can't. I didn't make the graphic. When was the last time I made a graphic with the top 10 other than just...
Well, you had him scrolling down the bottom.
Yeah, so I have those graphics. Sure I do.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
So I'll put them up. So our top point guard in the first team, this is the first team for the Knicks. Our first team, our starting point guard is Mr. Walter Clyde Frazier. Walt Clyde, point guard for the first team of our list.
No brainer.
Absolutely not. None whatsoever. This should not have even
been...
Best
top Nick of all time.
Should not have even been a question.
Walt
right
Frazier.
There. Dishing and swishing. There he goes. All right. Our starting shooting guard for the Knicks on our top Knicks list tonight is Mr. Earl of the Pearl Monroe. And no brainer here. We were all in agreement on this one as well.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Didn't play for them for very long, but
was a short career with the Knicks, but
he was great. He was even great after, he stuck around a while after that team was gone. He was sort of the star of what remained of the post, and he was
was he there like almost 10 years? That's pretty good.
Yeah. Well,
9 years.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for the time of the championships, it was a short career in those championships, and he stayed, and the team kind of broke off there.
Right.
So, all right, our first team small forward is going to be Mr. Bernard King. Did I spell that right? Yeah, Bernard King. I thought it was an L next to the K there. It would have been Kling. But
for any of you younger listeners, which we don't have any, go look it up. Go look up videos of Bernard King playing the Larry Bird Celtics in a 7-game series.
Absolutely.
With 2 broken fingers.
Yeah. You need, that's how you played.
This people think the biggest nightmare that Knicks fans have is John Starks in games. No, the biggest nightmare Knicks fans have is the fact that the Knicks got rid of Bernard King when there was a possibility that after his injury of coming back that he could have played for a few seasons alongside Patrick Ewing. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go out as the great prognosticator and say, had that been the case, if King and Ewing were able to play together, the Knicks would have had a championship.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Absolutely.
Although he had injury problems later in his career, right? I think.
No. I mean, he had a devastating injury that he came back from. Was the comeback player of the year when wound up, being an all-star again with Washington and having some really, really good years.
He did.
He had a shortened career due to injuries, but the injuries happened. The worst injury happened when he was a Knick. I mean, I remember the night he went down. I was like, ugh. I know now
this is our first disagreement, right?
Yeah. Well,
this was our first disagreement. Yes. Harry and I said Bernard King, and you had said our second team small forward.
Yeah.
You switched them. You
right,
had them flip flopped. Right. So we'll get there.
Which by the way, the argument also could be made that the best small forward that ever played for the Knicks is on our reserves. So this is a pretty much like center. The Knicks have had some pretty damn good small forwards before.
Pretty much.
And a few of them are in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And one will definitely probably be in the Hall of Fame once his career is over. Yeah.
This is true. So there you go. And moving to our power forward on our first team would be Mr. Dave DeBusschere.
DeBusschere, I mean, I think he's a name that gets forgotten, but man, My dad just used to tell me about Dave DeBusschere when he would rub it in that he was alive when the Knicks were winning championships. But Dave DeBusschere was just a really vital piece of those championship teams for the Knicks.
Well, we were all too, but we just don't remember.
Yeah, well, we were barely alive. I mean, people still had to wipe our ass. But yeah, it was Dave DeBusschere. I mean, I it's hard to make an argument for anybody else here. Yeah. Right. Well, yeah. Pete went to grammar school with Dave DeBusschere.
Yeah. I can wipe my own ass with Dave DeBusschere was winning championships with the Knicks, I'm proud to say.
Well, excuse me.
It's now that you have a hard time.
Right.
All comes round robin.
Which brings us back to his OnlyFans page, but we're leaving that one alone. So
yeah, that's the extra gold.
That's the extra.
Or should
that's
I say
triple
bronze.
platinum level?
Yeah. That's the patinaed bronze statue.
That's funny. All right, and to wrap up, it's like a weird turn. And to wrap up our first team of best top New York Knicks of all time, it would be our center, and that would be Mr. Willis Reed. Yes. Not who you thought it would be. His name will be mentioned. Don't worry.
Look, I spent hours pondering this, and at the end of the day...
Pete spent minutes pondering this.
Pete didn't ponder it at all.
I did, but it wasn't...
it wasn't hours.
Willis Reed...
It just wasn't... No, this wasn't enough of a case.
Yeah. Yeah, Willis Reed was an incredible player. And you know, moments do matter. And I think that arguably the greatest moment in Knicks history was Willis Reed coming out of the tunnel, hitting 2 shots and sitting down and letting the greatest player in Knicks history have the best Game 7 in the history of the NBA playoffs. But yeah, I mean, Willis Reed was a guy who, and look, it wasn't as if Willis Reed didn't battle against some really great centers in his career. I mean, look, the other day in the All-Star game, the guys Willis Reed battled were all there in the NBA's top 75 of all time. Like people like Wes Unseld and Wilt Chamberlain. And I mean, Willis Reed beat Wilt Chamberlain twice in the NBA Finals. Yep. A team that also had Jerry West on it.
Right.
So,
yeah. And I said this before when we were talking, Pete, before you got on, Harry and I were talking, we're going back and forth. And I said, I almost, because Willis Reed played power forward too. I almost, obviously he's a center, right? But I almost moved him to power forward just to get Reed and Ewing.
I made that disclaimer. I made that disclaimer that you couldn't do that because this was the tough one. Yeah. This was the tough one because you could, hey, if we had top 5 Knicks of all time, then Ewing and Reed probably make everybody's list.
Make the list, right? Exactly.
But
somebody has to come off the bench.
Somebody has to come off the bench, exactly.
Yeah.
So and a lot of times in Knick history, it's the bench players that actually, are the beef of the team, especially now anyway. Right now, there's
never been the case. In fact, the Knicks never. I mean, this championship.
My sarcasm was dripping there.
This championship team had a bench, but yeah. I mean, I just remember when the Knicks had Ernie Grunfeld coming off the bench. That wasn't that bad.
That wasn't that bad.
And that was to try and get somebody to sign a contract.
We talked about 94. Bench players would have been, better bench players would have been acceptable then because that was just ridiculous. But in any event, it was all, they had good teams. And this is what we were talking about this before. I mean, the difference between Willis Reed and Patrick Ewing is that Willis Reed, and this was the argument that I kept going back and forth with, right? Willis Reed had really, really, really good players around him. Patrick Ewing had decent players around him, but time after time, game after game, he had to put them on his back and take care of it.
Yeah, this is not a slight against Patrick Ewing.
Yeah,
this is just and the argument too is that I always hear this with the Knicks and the argument that goes against Willis Reed. I never hear that when people talk about Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Did you ever see that Lakers team that Kareem was on? It doesn't diminish Kareem. And it doesn't diminish Willis Reed because Willis Reed was battling against Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West.
But that's exactly correct. That's exactly the point. And that's what pushed me over the edge saying, look, it's got to be Reed.
And look, Ewing, I think what hurts Ewing too is that Ewing did it forever. His longevity was, I mean, he is the toughest Nick to ever play the game. I mean, he just did it forever.
Yep.
But that also hurt him because he had some years where he maybe held on a little too long.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, he went to Georgetown. That's what tipped it for me.
That was Center University.
That's for sure. All right, let's move on to our second team. Our second team of top Knicks of all time. So, we're going to start off with our point guard, and that would be Mr. Michael Ray Richardson.
Wow, Michael Ray.
Michael Ray. What do you think about that one, Radio Pete?
Well, I didn't. I put him on the bench.
You did. That's why I asked.
And it wasn't so much a longevity or a lack of longevity, but I think he was a great player who played for the Knicks.
Right. Even his best years were maybe not with the Knicks. Is that what you're trying to say?
No. I think he was a really great player for a while until the drugs took him out, and he played for the Knicks. I don't know if he was I don't classify him as a great Knick, and part of that is the longevity, but I can't hold that as a strict rule. I just I don't know. I like him a lot, but I just don't consider him a great Knick. He's a great player who was on the Knicks for a while.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I remember the Michael Ray Richardson years, and he was fantastic, and he was kind of, I know this is going to sound weirdly controversial, but he kind of was the prototype for Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
In a weird way. I mean, when Magic Johnson came in the league, that's who he reminded me of, was Michael Ray Richardson. Again, didn't have the team around him that a lot of people did. The thing that surprised me is none of us had Mark Jackson on this.
He was on my list. It just he
actually
was like right there. If I had we did 4 reserves, we wound up having 5 because of a tie. Had we done 5, Mark Jackson would have been on my list.
Yeah, and Mark Jackson's numbers, I think, are way better than. I like Mark Jackson. I think he had a big impact on those early years of the Ewing era, but Michael Ray Richardson was a much better player.
Yeah, actually, I went briefly back and forth for that bench spot between the two of them, just because Jackson really meant so much to the Knicks. But and again, I like Michael Ray. I mean, he played for the Nets too,
Yeah,
sure.
But yeah, no, it's look, this is the one, other than the obvious number one. The Knicks haven't had they've had a ton of good point guards. They haven't had a bunch of great point guards who have played a long time.
Right.
I mean, if you take 2 years out of Steph Marbury's career with the Knicks, then you're like, well, okay, wow. But the longevity factor hurts people like Richardson. It hurts Mark Jackson even, I think, a little bit, because he left and went to Indiana. I think it hurts somebody like Steph Marbury. I mean, you look at people like Carl Braun and Richie Guerin. Wasn't Richie Guerin a point guard? Or he was a shooting guard, I guess.
He was, I mean,
yeah, kind of. You could probably make the case.
You could make the case for either. Yeah.
He was my list, right?
I
think I put him as a second team as a shooting guard.
And then you look at guys who were there for very short periods of time, who were also very good, guys like Doc Rivers and Maurice Cheeks and Derek Harper. I mean, the Knicks did a good job of sort of bringing in point guards, but it seems like it was always past their prime.
Right.
This is one position where I don't think the Knicks are very deep at a long history of great point guards.
Yeah.
And they probably never will be, because it's a position that's sort of dying on the vine.
It's fallen by the wayside, yeah. All right, so moving on to shooting guard on our second team is going to be Mr. Allen Houston.
Man, it's I mean, again, I think a lot of people, when they think of shooting guards on the Knicks, I think John Starks is the person that a lot of people think of.
You know what?
And it's hard, but Houston was a machine, and Houston was a much better player.
He was a much better player than Starks, and that coupled with the fact of all I have to do is say 1994, and where.
Well, I mean, you can't. Yeah, I mean, you can't.
There were a lot of reasons they didn't win that championship, but that's the one direct one you can think of.
And I think a lot of people think of Allen Houston as getting this huge contract and then never living up to it, again, based on a lot of injuries. He was a big part of that team that went to the finals in 99.
Yep.
I mean, I know this sounds controversial, but I think I'd put Latrell Sprewell ahead of John Starks.
I was going to say, you think it was more him or Latrell?
Well, both. But, was Latrell a 3 or was he a 2? I mean, I think he was kind of a 2 that was, the Knicks were sort of playing a weird – and they did kind of share court time together, but they didn't always share. I mean, Larry Johnson was the big differentiator on that team. But
right. Well, let me ask you guys this: Who was a better choker, Starks or Sprewell?
Well,
couldn't get through that
in prime time. Starks on camera. Starks. Yeah. Look, poor John.
In practice, I believe it was Sprewell, right?
Sprewell in practice. Yeah.
I mean, it's PJ Carlesimo. Do you blame him?
No, not sorry. Yeah, I don't know. I you guys both had Houston.
Yeah, we had Houston.
Yeah. All right.
You had Richie Guerin.
I had Richie Guerin. The guy was just phenomenal.
Again, Richie Guerin.
He's on this list. It's just not. Yeah.
I think we had
pretty much the same.
I think I had 2 guys that maybe you guys didn't. Let me look at the whole.
You had 2 guys that we didn't have.
Yeah. Okay.
And the fact that you didn't pick Charles Oakley as a second string power forward, I'll hold against you forever.
Yeah,
in fact, if you think about it,
I've given you plenty of things to hold against me.
Your list, Pete, and we'll roll through the rest of them. But your list, everybody that you listed made this entire list.
Yeah,
there's one that I listed and one that Harry listed that did not make the cut.
Yeah.
Everybody listed.
Oh, I like Oakley. He's one of the few kind of Knicks that I ever really liked, especially from that era. But
and as far as point guards too, I think Dick Barnett would be up there as well. I mean, was he a point guard? Was he a shooting guard? I mean,
same with Richie Guerin. Yeah. So.
I think and the other guy I had too.
Dick Barnett had a hell of a career. I mean, I think Dick Barnett averaged 20 points a game.
Yeah, listen, I think this is what I was talking about before. Like Houston and Oakley, they're the guys from our era, right?
Oakley is arguably, maybe the second or third most popular Knick of all time.
Right. But I mean, they played sort of during like the last great era of the Knicks.
Exactly.
But so which was when we were. Still young men.
Yeah, that's how long ago it was.
It's a while ago.
Yeah. So we tend to put them. Right. I can't vehemently argue against either of those picks.
No.
But I don't know. Maybe the fact that I'm not a Knick fan,
right.
Gave me a little bit different perspective. Obviously.
All right, moving on to small forward on our second team. That's going to be Mr. Carmelo Anthony. And this is where we flip-flopped.
Right, he was my first team.
You had Melo on your first team and Bernard.
Which, look, but based on numbers alone, it makes a lot of sense. Although, Carmelo played longer for the Knicks than King. When I saw Carmelo Anthony playing in Syracuse, my first thought was, this guy reminds me of Bernard King. I mean, I think even Melo has mentioned that people used to compare him to that.
Right.
And I'm a big Carmelo Anthony supporter. I think he gets a lot of shit, especially out here in Denver, because he left, and
right.
Carmelo doesn't play defense. Okay, yeah, like Kiki Vandeweghe was gonna be the example of defensive player of the year. Carmelo is one of the top 75, 50, 40 basketball players of all time. I mean, I think on his time with the Knicks, I think his impact was slightly less. But look, for that brief period of time, the Knicks had some hope and did far more than any of the teams since Carmelo's left. So,
yeah, for me, this was sort of where the years played.
Right.
Doesn't again, it's not a hard line delineation, but right. Melo was a really good Knick.
And he's really good before that he was a Knick.
Right. But I mean, his time with the Knicks, he was really good for, I think he was a 7 every year he was with the Knicks. I think.
Right. Wasn't he the last Knick? Wasn't he the last Knick to lead the league in scoring?
Could be. I mean, 20.
And I think the person before that was Bernard King.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you pick top 5 Knicks of all time, a lot of people would have both of them on their list.
There you go.
Yeah.
Moving on to power forward on the second team, and that's going to be Mr. Charles Oakley.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this player on our list right here, is Mr. Dolan's favorite Knick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to say, unfortunately, I think known to many now as the unfortunate incident that happened at the Garden. Oakley's, stats do tell a lot, but Oakley was one of those guys that he's maybe the best team defender to ever play on the Knicks, period. And I think the other guy who I would put up there was the guy who beat him out for the top spot, that Dave DeBusschere. Mm-hmm. Oakley was the heart and soul of those 90s Knicks teams. And he was a better scorer than I think people remember him. He was a guy who could hit down a mid-range jumper. He was at times very awkward around the basket. He wasn't a great finisher. He very rarely dunked the ball, right. But he was a great defender. A lot of times he covered the center on the other team. Mm-hmm. And he was a fantastic rebounder. And when he was probably even a better rebounder when he was with the Bulls, for the first couple of years of his career. But yeah, I mean, one of the great Knicks, and will probably never be a Hall of Famer or mentioned in that category. But if you ask people from the age of 25 to 75 to list their favorite Knicks of all time, Oakley's going to be on that list.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And that brings us to our center for our number 2, our second team, if you will. And that, of course, is Mr. Patrick Ewing. And like I said, I tried to finagle a way to get both Willis Reed and Patrick Ewing in there, and that would also mean leaving Dave DeBusschere off of the first team equation, so to speak. So it just I wanted to do it, but he's there, he's on the list, he's the second team, so he's playing, right? He's there, but.
Yeah, well, depending on Willis Reed's health, he's going to get a lot of minutes.
This is true, too.
He may get the majority.
We're going to need a third stringer, yeah, because, but
they're only playing a 5-minute game, though. So
imagine if Ewing had load management, he'd still be playing.
There you go. Probably. So, all right, and we talked a lot about it was difficult to put him on the second team and not the first team, but it had to be done because it's just, you couldn't do that to Reed, so. All right. And that brings us to our reserves, kind of in no particular order because they kind of jump around a little bit, and their positions are a little ambiguous. We'll call it that anyway.
Now, did you guys look to sort of fill the bench with one of these guys or one of these guys? You just look at the guys
who could play it. No, who could play, and so we got like my list was here. Well, I'll run through the 5 that we have for the reserves, and then I'll tell you what I did and what you did, and we'll go from there.
Were we supposed to pick 5 or 4?
4. We were. We only have 5 because we have a tie. So that's.
Okay. Of course, we have a tie.
Of course there is, right? So our reserves, there's 5 of them, and it's going to be Richie Guerin, and just as guard, whether it's shooting guard or point guard or whatever.
Yep. Okay.
What you call it? Then we got point guard. We got Carl Braun. And then we got our small forward or shooting guard, depending on how you're looking at it, because he played both, was Bill Bradley. And then we have a power forward, was Harry Gallatin. And, of course, last but certainly not least, because I know Harry's going to want to speak about this man for a couple minutes, and that would be our power forward / center, more center than that. And that's Bob McAdoo, not to be confused with his nephew Ben.
Right.
But, Bob McAdoo. So, now, of those...
I don't think you would ever mix those guys.
I don't think you can mix them up either now. So, of those 5, my 4 that I picked was Richie Guerin, Dollar Bill, Grandmama, which did not make the list, and Bob McAdoo. Harry picked Dick Barnett, who did not make the list, Richie Guerin, Bill Bradley, and Bob McAdoo. And Radio Pete, you picked Michael Ray, Allen Houston, Charles Oakley, and Bob McAdoo. So... all of your picks made, and
So guys that you had on the first and second team, I had a couple on the bench.
You had a couple on the bench, and things moved around. Because what we did was first teamer voting got 3 points, second team voting got 2 points, and reserves got 1 point. So that was the easiest. That was the only really way to do it. So that's how the voting went. But yeah, so of this whole list, Larry Johnson got left off from my list, reserves, and Dick Barnett got left off from Harry's reserve list. Other than that, everybody made it on the left, so it was a pretty good list. I thought this was a good job.
Some very tough choices.
It was very tough choices, but I think we, with the exception of that, whole, Mark Jackson issue, because that was the only one that I was, he's not represented really. But for the men that are on this list, the players that are on this list, I think, it serves its purpose well. You agree?
I agree. I mean, I sort of cheated because I get to pick, our old balls segment, and there's another guy, who will be doing for that, who I think he played for too many teams, but he was certainly, if you look at great players to play for the Knicks, he would also be on there. But yeah, Bob McAdoo, I mean, I think he just gets forgotten in the annals of basketball. I mean, this guy was a scoring machine and just a dominant force. I mean, he still holds the record for the most points averaged in a season for a Knick. He was maybe, and his longevity wasn't there, but if you just look at who was the best player in NBA history to play for the Knicks, go ahead, make a case against Bob McAdoo. I mean, Bob McAdoo was great, and look, he played a long time, and late in his career, he was a big part of those of the Lakers championship team, and pretty incredible all around career for Bob McAdoo. That's for sure.
Agreed, that's for sure.
And he was dominant. Those Knicks teams were not great, and they sort of let him go, but he was dominant on the years that he was on the Knicks. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
I mean, what was he? 26 points a game he averaged.
Yeah.
26, 12, and 3.
Crazy.
Not bad.
No.
And
I mean, 12.
And more than a steal, and 1.3 steals and 1.4 blocks. On top of that.
I mean, and he played a lot of time. He played center. He was 6'9", but I mean, he was not the biggest guy in the world either, but he was just a great player.
49% from the field.
Man, and I just wish the Knicks would have been able to hold on to him, because I think he went on to play for a lot of teams after that. And it wasn't until the 80s, right? When he won the championship. Did he win twice with the Celtics? 80 or the Lakers? I mean, 82 and 85. Is that when he won?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, 82 and 85. I mean, he was on the Knicks in 76. So 10 years later, almost, he was winning he's a 3-time NBA scoring champion.
And then I think he went to Italy for 5 or 6 or 7 years.
He's still playing. He's still playing in the Israeli league.
He's in the Israeli league right now.
He's 70. He's averaging 16.9 points a game. Yeah.
Oh shit. So I thought this was a good representation. I thought this was a good list. I think I'm happy with this the way it panned out. So, all right. Shall we do old balls?
Sure.
Harry, why don't you tell us who this week's old balls
This
is?
week's recipient of the old balls designation and award is none other than Mr. Jerry Ray Lucas. Again, a great power forward who played for the Cincinnati Royals, the San Francisco Warriors, and then came to the Knicks in 1971. He was an NBA champion on the 1973 team. He played in the NBA Finals where the Knicks lost. He was a 7-time All-Star, 3-time NBA first team, which is not an easy thing to do. 2-time NBA All-Second team. He was the NBA Rookie of the Year in 1964. Part of the NBA 50th anniversary team and the NBA 75th anniversary team. By the way, he was also an NCAA champion, and he was a big part. I mean, again, my dad and uncle, who were big followers of these Knicks teams in the 70s, talk about Jerry Lucas and just how important he was to those Knicks teams. And the ball got shared a lot on those teams, that's for sure. But he was a tough guy, and he was, imagine that front line when you could have Willis Reed and Dave DeBusschere, and then you got Cazzie Russell, early on, and then after Cazzie Russell, you got Jerry Lucas coming in off the bench. I mean, it's pretty incredible when you think about it. He was also kind of an odd duck in that he could memorize the phone book, and he demonstrated this on like television. So yeah, I mean, these Knicks teams, if you really look at the players that were on here and the characters that were on these teams, you got when Jerry Lucas and Bill Bradley are the afterthoughts, those are some pretty good teams. He was a great passer, great defensive player, tough guy, pretty damn good scorer. In 1972, he averaged 18.6 points a game for the Knicks. So I don't know. I think he's another Knick that doesn't get brought up a lot, but he was pretty instrumental in that second championship, and just 7-time All-Star, NBA All. And when you make it onto the 50th and 75th anniversary teams, and you don't even make it into the top Knicks of all time, I just think he's worth a mention.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's.
Yeah. By the way, his career NBA statistics: 17 points per game, 15.6 rebounds per game.
15.6 rebounds per game.
Yes,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. Those are amazing numbers. Just crazy. So, well, there you go. Jerry Lucas, this week's Old Balls. Old Balls. All right. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that wraps up NBA. Huh?
It makes me excited about the Knicks, but sad that I think
now they are
10 years from now, I don't think we're going to be adding Obi Toppin or
I don't think so.
RJ Barrett to this list.
No, I have to agree with you on that one.
Well, listen,
but you never know.
You guys
maybe Kemba Walker makes the list.
Do I want Zion now?
Yeah.
No, I don't want Zion.
Well, listen, you get Zion, you'll have 3 Dukies, and then Coach K can come out of retirement.
There you go.
To coach him.
Look, I mean, the question I have for the Knicks is this just following the Tom Thibodeau sort of playbook where he seems to come out of the gate pretty well. He's got a team following into his system, and then slowly he loses them. I mean, there's a lot of chatter in New York about, is Thibodeau the right guy now?
Yep.
I think you got to stick with him. I don't think there's somebody better.
You can't make a change
there.
now. You got to stick with him now. If it continues down this path next year, that's a different story. But hopefully, he can wrangle in, and hopefully,
I think your front office has done a much shittier job.
Yeah, I don't
absolutely.
I'm not happy with.
I mean, they haven't given him the right kind of guy.
I think the Knicks need to change. I think the Knicks need to change ownership so that there's I think that Dolan has kept a lot of free agents from signing with the Knicks.
And
I think he's going to continue to do that.
Yeah,
and look, I'm not saying that that's the answer for the Knicks, but it is. I mean, the Knicks need to bring a big name player to New York. I like Julius Randle. I think he's a great player. He's, I'm not going to criticize him for his numbers being down this year,
right.
But Julius Randle and RJ Barrett alone are not the answer. And it's just being proven in the numbers. The Knicks are not as good a defensive team. They're not a great shooting team. The ball doesn't move as well as it did last year. And they just don't have the right chemistry and the right mix of talent. And that definitely falls on the front office. But what free agent is going to turn this Knicks team around? That's the question, right? Who knows?
Who knows?
I just don't know. I don't see the Knicks being able to attract somebody in the offseason that's going to be a game changer.
I agree. And I think, well, what I was going to say was maybe we could, once the Mets, baseball starts again and the Mets get over the hump or whatever, maybe we can petition Steve Cohen to, buy the Knicks too. I mean, it's the same colors,
Right.
So, I mean,
look, I'm gonna say this: if it wasn't for James Dolan and what he did to Charles Oakley,
mm-hmm.
and the fact that I think Kevin Durant would have signed with the Knicks. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I think LeBron James would have considered the Knicks at some point. I just think that this
Durant didn't come here. LeBron James didn't come here directly because of Dolan. So.
Absolutely.
So. Yeah, he didn't even meet with them, right?
LeBron,
right? Yeah.
Didn't I thought LeBron did.
Who knows? My point being is that
I'm going back. What? I'm going back 12, 13 years.
Oh, okay.
That was all going down, but
yeah, I mean, what was the last big name free agent signing the Knicks had was who? Carmelo. I mean, Amari Stoudemire, I don't really count, but
why not?
Yeah, well, he's horrible. he's what Obi Toppin.
He was the Obi Toppin of his day, is what he was.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, he just came too late, right?
The other part
were way behind him,
and the Knicks were able to, injuries and diminishing athleticism.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He just wasn't the same player.
He wasn't able to transform his game like a Kenyon Martin or some other players who had more length in their careers. The Knicks have always been able to build competitive teams based on bringing. Think about the veterans that the Knicks were able to bring in the past. It's just not going to happen unless there's a change in ownership. And I don't know how you force that unless a Spike Lee and other big name season ticket holders say, screw this, we're not coming to the Knicks games anymore. It's not going to happen.
It's not. All right. Well, yeah. we will. What? I'm sorry.
They'll just get replaced by visiting celebrities.
That's true.
Well, they're all visiting, right?
They're all visiting.
The exception of Spike Lee and Woody Allen. I heard Woody Allen was kicked out of Madison Square Garden and that's why you haven't seen him there much lately.
Probably.
Spike Lee even had a run-in with security. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Well, we'll talk more about basketball.
Well, actually, can I bring one thing up?
You can bring one thing up. Yeah.
One thing. 3 seconds.
Go.
Oh.
All right, that's it.
That's it. Oh, no, it's after 9. We want to get out in an hour. Good luck with that. Well, the NCAA looks like they're going to get rid of standardized test score requirements for athletes. I don't know if you saw the story.
I didn't, no.
Divisions 1 and 2 taking a step towards removing standardized test scores from initial eligibility requirements for future student athletes.
Wow.
Committees from both divisions unanimously recommended removal of the test score from initial eligibility requirements. The Division 1 committee and the Division 2 academic requirements committee met the 10th and the 9th of this month. And they basically want to get rid of test scores as part of the requirement to play Division 1 and 2 basketball.
Interesting.
And I wondered if you guys had some thoughts on that, whether it's a good thing, not a good thing.
I'm not surprised, but
now, to be fair, the test score is, in general, academically, there are more and more places of higher education that are discounting it or certainly not giving it the same weight.
Mm-hmm.
The SAT score, there's more and more places that aren't even interested in looking at it.
They don't look at it anymore. Yeah.
And there's the whole argument about standardized test scores, which I think have a purpose and a use.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, they're not always used for that or only for that.
Right.
So academically, it's becoming more and more a thing of the past.
Right.
But I don't know. Is it a good? I mean, if you don't have that, doesn't it just become a complete free-for-all?
It does. It does. I think you should have it. I think because if you get rid of it, what other criteria is there for?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, it's just who's going to end up going where. I mean, you look. We all know that college athletes, especially in Division 1 and probably Division II less so, and Division III less so. But they're there for an education. They're not, the really good ones, right? They're there. It's a stepping stone, whether it's, basketball or football in particular. Look, college football is the de facto minor leagues of the NFL, right?
Right.
Well, you could say the same thing about NCAA for basketball, sure.
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a 1
year. But
I mean,
at least you do have a D League and a G League, a place where, those guys that aren't good enough. I guess that's sort of the practice squad or whatever. But
it's more of a practice squad thing.
I think it's more so with
it's kind of a hybrid practice squad, minor league kind of a thing.
Yeah,
but
I think it's more so with football, but I wouldn't argue with
well,
your point.
My point being is that the best college basketball players play 1 year in college basketball now, and that because they have to get into the NBA. I would argue in football that's not the case. I mean, you see a lot of
they have to play 2 years.
Well, but a lot of them even play 3 and 4.
Right.
So,
right. But my point is that, a lot of these guys who do leave early, they don't graduate, or at least not at that time. Right. For some people, it's a stepping stone to the pros.
In the NBA, the only reason why they're going to college for 1 year is because they have to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
So now you're going to remove this requirement, which is going to, drive them to work a little bit harder at least, right? You've got to get a score above whatever the limit is on a test to get into the university. Well, now we're going to take that away. So really, no matter how good a player is, as long as he graduates high school, welcome aboard, son.
Right.
I mean,
that's kind of dangerous to me.
I hate to be cynical, but it's probably that way now, even with this testing.
Well,
they're getting rid of the
you might have some
necessity to have it even listed in there in the first
place. You might have some egghead going to take the test for you, right? We've all seen the movies about how they get around it or whatever.
Right.
But at least there's something in place. I mean, if there's, they have to have that score, whether it's legitimate or not.
Right.
And I would tend to think most of them are.
So are grades going to be more? I guess it's up to each individual university, but are they going to be weighted more? What is going to dictate the criteria for these colleges?
I don't know.
To be determined.
Whoever, I mean, it's really a matter of stature now, right?
Mm-hmm.
The quality of the player, right? How heavily they're recruited, how many colleges and what size, and big names, how many of them want them. But I guess my point is there's now even more of a de-emphasis even before getting into the college ranks, even more of a de-emphasis on education, in the sense that now there is this.
No, there's more of a de-emphasis on standardized test scores. I don't think there's de-emphasis on education, because I don't think there's a correlation between education and test scores.
I agree. I don't think test scores are a good way to measure teachers and that sort of thing, but they are a good way to measure standardized knowledge across a broad spectrum, and that's really all they should be used for.
Right.
But again, how do you?
Who knows?
It's in other words, it's at least something that, in theory, as the system is designed, every kid who's going to go to Division I or Division II school has to get a certain score on that test, by hook or by crook. No matter how they do it, whatever education system they come up through, they have to meet that standard.
Well, that's the point.
Now you're going to remove that.
That's why they're removing it, because it's been proven by study after study that a standardized test score is not standard. Because for many people, especially those who come from less fortunate backgrounds, that standardized test score and the education that allows those in better situations to excel at those standardized tests, it's a hindrance in many people's educational backgrounds. So something will have to be replaced to it, but we can't have a standardized test score until there is standardized access to information and education.
Right.
I agree. It's not a good judge of the quality of the education, but at least it is a block. I agree with that.
I agree.
At least it is a block of knowledge,
right,
that someone must possess in order to.
If they can think of another way to do it, and have it be a sliding scale, have it be a little bit more fair. I mean, I like Harry just said, it's not a standard thing. So if there's a way, and then I know this isn't necessarily fair, but it is what it is, and grade them on some form of a, I don't want to say sliding scale, but grade them on some form of a, based on their academic history, what they went through, what they were taught, how they were taught. And I can see that, but just getting rid of completely everything and have it be a free for all, there's got to be some form of a happy medium they can find. That's my input anyway. It's my 2 cents.
Way above my pay grade.
It's above my pay grade too. So that's my opinion, and that's what he asked for. So I gave it.
Yeah, I say diversify education, give kids an opportunity beyond the standard college education, and let's take all that money from Division I football and put it into music and art and science and physics, and give women's athletics a fair share of the money too, so that we can get more people involved along those lines.
Hold on, I'm looking for my ding, 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 ding button. I can't find it anywhere. So, but you get the idea.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think if you spent the money that gets spent on Division I college athletics could easily fund a minor league system, couldn't it?
Pretty much.
I mean, it's millions, if not billions of dollars.
It is a minor league system.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, without being under the guise of, they're trading that athletic for an education.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Just if they're good enough right out of high school, go into the minor leagues, and you want to have them, say you had to have to play there a couple of years, okay, fine.
But there is no minor league basketball. There is no minor league football. There isn't baseball. And a lot of people do forego college and go into the minor leagues of baseball. So
right.
My concern is less about on the athletic side of things. It's more on the non-athletic scholarship admittance, where I think it becomes more of a challenge. But maybe there's some better guidelines to follow, some comparative. Maybe it comes down to the individual student a little bit more, and they don't automatically get disqualified based on a standardized test.
Kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing they often look at is the academic progress.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't maybe score on the standardized test as well as, but I guess I'm just saying that.
Right now.
My point is, you could be a really, really great player who is really lousy academically.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
And without some sort of benchmark, you can get that shot. And maybe that's not what's best for.
It's a combination of SAT score, rebounds per game, growth in height in the last 3 years, and bench press.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair.
Maybe
I think that's fair.
Maybe high jump.
That's right.
And a high jump. Yeah. I don't know. I
how many Instagram followers you have?
I worry.
I mean that gets you in the door. Then the other stuff happens.
Right, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, all right.
Interesting.
Fair point. It's
that's
interesting.
TikTok video. I mean, isn't that the application now? You have to do a TikTok video.
You have to do that's how you even get the appointment.
Get 10,000 likes on your TikTok.
All the introverts are definitely being unfairly compared.
Exactly. So.
All right.
So, and teams played hockey. There you go.
That's right.
Rangers are in third.
Yes, they are. So we'll talk more about hockey as we get close to the cup. Now I'm kidding.
We'll talk more about hockey if there's a continued baseball strike and an NBA lockout.
Wasn't Montreal in the finals? Was it last year?
Montreal was in the finals last year.
Expos were great.
They're fucking terrible.
They are. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, they were in. It was Montreal and Tampa.
They're worse than Buffalo.
Yeah. So, Montreal,
like a lot worse than Buffalo.
Yes.
Like 25% of their points worse than Buffalo.
Crazy. All right.
Yeah.
Insane.
But a wonderful international city.
It was very good. So, all right. Well, anything else? I think we're good, right?
We're wrapping it up.
We're wrapping it up early tonight. Look at that.
Love it.
I wanted to talk about the forced child labor in Jakarta, but
We
can say that. We'll tweet about that and save it till next week.
All right, fine.
Go to Radio Pete's Random Thoughts on iTunes and Spotify.
On Spotify.
It's called I Read Something that it got my hackles up.
Radio Pete read something today.
Oh, do you want to do an over-under? Or do you want to save it for next week?
John has to go.
All right.
Is it a quick one?
No.
No, it's not a quick one.
No, it's not.
All right, we'll save it for next week then.
All right, we'll save it for next week. It's a really, really good one.
It's a good one. Oh, good.
Right.
Well, why don't you preface it? We'll think about it. Or you want to just do it all in one shot?
Nah, we'll do it all in one shot. I don't want to give anything away.
All right, fine. All right, fair enough. All right, we'll do it next week.
I'll say this. For both of our listeners, you'll either think it's really great and hilarious, or you will not.
Or you will
go the opposite. You will go, what the fuck is that?
All right.
So
I like it.
It could be controversial. It could be controversial.
Could be controversial.
Ooh. Right. Tune in next week.
Radio
Pete's controversial over-under.
Potentially controversial over-under. And Jakarta.
And the Jakarta child labor laws.
The Jakarta minor league of football.
Exactly. Well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But anyway.
All
right. On that note, then, we will wrap the show for today. We want to thank everybody for watching, and for those of you just listening to the audio podcast, thanks for listening. Don't forget to visit our website at www.getonwithitpodcast.com. That's getonwithitpodcast.com. And please remember, like us and follow us on all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search for the Get On With It podcast. And, of course, all of the shows are available on YouTube as well on the Logger Room channel. Remember, we go live with the video podcast on both Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night around 7:30 Eastern Time. And for those of you that just want to listen to the audio podcast, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcast, and iHeartRadio as well. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to one or more of those feeds, and you will never miss a show. Again, thanks for following along with us. Have a great rest of your week. Have a wonderful weekend. Watch basketball as it picks back up again tomorrow. And we will talk to you next week, where we will have a very controversial over-under.
Potentially.
Yeah. So enjoy, folks, and we will talk to you soon. Have a good one. Cheers.